Welcome back to another episode of Man Reacts. I'll start off today's video by going through an article I just read about men going their own way, where the author compared it with the Taliban. Imagine that. The title of the article is "The Men Going Their Own Way Movement is the Taliban of the Manosphere." It describes the MGTOW movement as a misogynist movement dedicated to hating women as opposed to loving them. This is what it says in one paragraph, and I quote verbatim. The MGTOW are sorry excuses for men, but what they represent is a profound shift in the way men and women relate. We are increasingly afraid to work with each other, flirt with each other, to love each other. We are becoming terrified of what, not so very long ago, was the most natural thing in the world. It goes on to say, the sad sacks of MGTOW, presenting their fear and loathing of women as a political manifesto, are only the tip of a toxic iceberg. Men, millions of men, now have a general anxiety about women that simply did not exist as recently as the end of the last century. That anxiety is widespread, mainstream, and real. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel by pressing the bell icon. Now, this article from GQ also talks about how men now avoid women in the workplace and believe that women pose a threat to their careers. Seriously, guys, I mean, what the author, who is a famous novelist and journalist by the way, is accusing men of, he's doing the same thing himself, spreading lies about the movement, and not really trying to understand what it actually means to men who have been manipulated and used by men the world over. Manipulation is the primary tool that modern women have and use against men. They're used to it since their teenage years and will continue to use it till their last breath. They will try to use your emotions against you in order to fulfill their own wishes. They will try to manipulate you into buying them gifts, into being okay with them seeing other people, into moving closer to where they work, and into believing in whatever they want you to believe. There's no end to it, and it frequently succeeds with weak men. They are primarily chasing one thing, and they will put up with abuse solely for the sake of that one thing, which we all know. Thus, they fall for the manipulative tactics of women, both intentionally and unknowingly. Therefore, it is best for males to keep their distance from such women who you are aware will exploit and manipulate them. Sincerely, dating a contemporary woman is not a flex. If you know what they're wanting and maintain your composure, even if the woman tries to lure you by making your wildest wishes come true, the flex is greater. You must maintain your composure and stand by yourself. Men who consider themselves to be nice men are simply men who have never been able to stand their ground. They have never used their true brain, have only ever wanted one thing, and are too afraid to express their desires. They behave quite sensitively today and yet are most vulnerable to exploitation by women. It is for this reason men need to conquer their emotions, not put women on a pedestal, and call them out for the BS that they seemingly ignore all the time. Women, in my opinion, desire our affection while also wanting us to reject them. As if we had a switch that we could use to turn love on and off. It is also quite submissive for a guy to kneel down and give a woman a huge and expensive diamond ring. The white knight test must be passed in today's society in order to be married. However, if you drop down on one knee and give your fiancé a ring, you have already failed the test. Nevertheless, women are socially instructed to accept that men make sacrifices for them, and that they should be subservient, despite the fact that a woman's inherent or innate character typically dictates that she should be the one who is submissive. Because you're tapping into your feminine nature and not paying attention to the background noise of what's socially acceptable and what isn't, I can understand why you're receiving a lot of attention despite the restrictions being placed against you. Additionally, you are breaking the rules of established intimate relations. In your situation, the woman who lacks authority benefits entirely when a male assumes leadership and makes decisions for her. On the other side, women also benefit when a man chooses to focus on being a protector and a provider rather than becoming aggressive and decisive. In the past, males were the guardians, providers, and aggressive leaders. However, most males today are urged to treat women with submission and on an equal footing when it comes to the workplace and careers. The actual question, I suppose, is what advantage women have in relationships with men who are emotionally superior to them. My response is that a woman does not need to exercise agency when a guy is in charge and accountable. The fact that the male makes the decisions makes her lack of agency clear. When males make decisions for them, especially when those decisions are wise ones, women tend to gain more self-assurance. The advantage of having a strong, dominating guy is that the kids will have more structure and discipline in their lives, which frequently translates to the kids being more productive in the long run. Those kids who will increase riches or who would appreciate retirement or insurance policy for their mothers later on in life. Most women, in my opinion, aren't mindful of the fact that the caliber of their progeny will benefit them in an old life. We spoke extensively about the government, but we didn't speak much about how it provides women with retirement benefits when they get older. The government assumes the role of the father for the kids, and in later life, it steps in to give the financial security that adult children frequently offer. Because the government would eventually assist them, many women in the past had no reason to treat their husbands and child's fathers with respect. But more crucially, because they are aware that the government would provide for them far into old life, mothers lack any real motivation to raise their children correctly. Therefore, since they receive their own money from the government, women are not in need to submit to their husbands or children. All of this was revealed following the suffrage of women. Women had little option but to bow to their husbands and children as long as they were later in life reliant upon them. However, once industrial automation and the social safety net were developed, women were no longer required to remain subordinate to males, despite the fact that their natural predisposition still told them to be reliant and submissive. I believe that women's unhappiness has increased over the past 3 to 4 decades because they are socially required to make important life decisions alone, without the assistance of males. Additionally, you described how awful your home was, how controlling your mother and your 2 sisters were, and how oddly it was the military school that raised you well. I'm sorry you were treated like that, but I'm delighted you met a woman who is receptive to you having an open marriage. As civilization progressed, things went rather well, but as soon as the roles were reversed and males became subservient and women became dominating, things quickly began to deteriorate. You also claim that you are not controlled or given orders, but what I discovered to be intriguing is that women do attempt to control and give orders to men, even if just subtly. Women are constantly seeking an advantage over us males. That has, at least, been my own experience. Women always want to dominate relationships, take on a domineering role, and identify any areas of vulnerability in males. I equate being in a relationship with a woman to participating in a political discussion. While you, the man, have to work at being a politician, your female opponent is always a career politician by nature. Instead, males don't possess the same mental abilities that women have when it comes to twisting our words, but once you master female manipulation techniques, they are all essentially the same since women find it difficult to think of novel methods to deceive men. I believe that many women are opposed to feminism, but they are unable to express this opposition since doing so would contradict the politically acceptable stereotype of women. While we may have popular websites and even television channels constantly talk about men going their own way as a horrible movement that shouldn't even exist, they fail to understand that men have been more alienated by society, culture, the justice system, and the government than ever before. They fail to understand that men do not have any platforms where they can come and share their grievances like women can. Men tend to do everything they can for women in order to be with them. They fight wars, build empires, make revolutionary inventions, and sacrifice their own lives. They do all of this unconditionally. On the other hand, a woman will only be there for you because of a number of reasons. It's never really authentic. Because they are naturally selfish, women have been conditioned by society to think they are entitled to all of a man's resources. Women try to shame, guilt, and look down on males, and say things like, "You're not man enough for me." Naturally, When men see this, they decide they don't want to participate in this unfair social game. But a man is always expected to grin while tolerating her spoiled, entitled, and selfish behavior. The contemporary guy is aware of this, and modern women find it offensive, which is why gender roles in Western society are so widely misunderstood. It's essential that you understand the true character of women since it shields you from adversity, abuse, and pain. Men need to be informed about what women really want in men and how men are susceptible to their deceptive tactics as women get pickier about who they want to be with. Society cannot and will never function without men. That's something women will probably take a while to get, but I think, give or take 5 to 10 years, both men and women will truly understand their place in the world and their real responsibilities to each other. Thanks for watching Man Reacts.